actual manufacturing levels increase month on month, as well as new sales orders. Other elements serve to drag down the index, with the supply deliveries category the main culprit. Well, to unpack the latest number for us, I'm joined by Sello Sekele. He's an economist at the Absa Group. Thank you so much, Sello, for joining us. So this is the 7th consecutive contraction in the Absa PMI. What were the drivers this time around?
Thanks for having me, Nompu. So this time around, the main index that weighed on the PMI was the supplier delivery times. We think that it shows two things. So the first is, recently the index has been artificially high due to bottlenecks in the logistics sector. And then this time around, we think that it's showing that bottlenecks are easing. And then it shows that business demand in the sector is quite subdued.
So how are you seeing the actual demand and supply fundamentals, and how much are concerns around still uncertain tariff landscape likely to impact the sector?
Yeah, so when you look at both demand and supply, they tend to move in tandem, right? When one weakens, the other tends to weaken too. So this time around, what we saw is that the indices measuring both demand and supply increased, but remained in territory that's consistent with, weak activity.
So I see that inflationary pressures for producers have been coming down, which pretty much tallies with the comments that were made by the Reserve Bank around inflation last week, and which, of course, then prompted them to give us a rate cut.
Yeah, so in terms of cost pressures, that's one of the good stories that we saw in the PMI reading. Cost pressures declined, and we suspect that's mainly as a result of the fuel price cuts in the month of May. But we know that going forward it's going to be a bit difficult to see that continuing with the newly announced fuel levy. But in terms of other factors that can actually keep input costs low, is that we're seeing that the rand has been strengthening since the Liberation Day tariffs were announced. And then we expect that the rand actually will end the year at 1750. So that's quite positive. And when you look at Brent crude oil price, like most commodities except those that people run to when there's a lot of risk, the prices of those commodities have been quite low, right? And we expect Brent crude oil to not be an exception. So those are the sort of factors that might keep input prices quite contained going forward.
Sello, one quick one. What is your expectation around manufacturing's contribution to the Q1 GDP number that's going to be coming out tomorrow, the gross domestic product number?
Yeah, so our expectation is that the sector declined. Activity in the sector declined, to be specific, in Q1. So when you look at the output data, it declined by about 2%, more or less, in Q1. So the sector likely took away from GDP growth in Q1.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, as always. That was Sello Sekele. He's an economist at the Absa Group.